where am I? What is this place, right? And it's
Always.
like, what do you mean?
Where am I and what is
are
this
you?
place?
Right? Like
you're
you
on the
came
internet.
here.
Yeah. You're on the internet, and the same way you got here, you can easily leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't need any moderation or community guidelines. You have a block button. If you don't like it, just block it.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, folks, welcome to the live stream. We thought we'd just keep our conversation going. I am on with Ed Hubbell from the Iridium Group and John Willis from Special Operations Equipment. I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast and Holly Rose. This is a very special cup.
What is it? What is that? Oh, boobies.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this was left behind at Self-Reliance Festival. I know whose it is, so I have it here to send to him. Anyway, Ed, what has been going on in the last year since you've been on? It's been too long.
First, I think this is probably my second live on Instagram ever. And so I'm going live. Anybody who pops on here in the next couple seconds to know to go over to the SOE Tactical Gear YouTube channel. Okay. And check us out. We're going to have a conversation there. So bye. Get over on YouTube. Cheers.
All right. John, what's new this week? What's that t-shirt?
Ooh, what is this? The Great Reset, but it says resist. It's a little girl spray painting underneath, crossed it out, says resist. And it says they will own nobody and they will not be happy. It's a ripoff of Banksy, the artist Banksy. It goes, yeah.
Check this one out, right?
Yep. Don't stop when you're tired. Stop
when you're done. Love that shirt.
I'm a tax slave today.
Mm-hmm.
I am working on taxes this week in my spare time, whatever that is.
I was going to wear one of the closet full of shirts that John has sent me, but I have my own shirt, and so I thought I'd wear that one today.
We need to do some more green ones. I like those.
I love those green ones that you do. So, and in fact, I would have your shirt guy make my shirts if it wasn't for the 20% customs and duties fees bringing them across the border.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. So how's the gun environment up in the Great Northwest?
So I do my best to ignore all of that bullshit.
Can you go in? So from my perspective, looking at Canada, it seems pretty locked down. Can you walk into a store and just buy guns, or is there anything is there a big deal to
it? Yes, there's a big deal to it. Most of the Canadians who may hop on here will have some emotional attachment to the whole gun thing because they're actively being taken away, but they're actively being taken away from everybody. You've got to pass a course, one of the safety courses that I teach, and then, make an application, keep your license current. There's a bunch of steps. Once you've jumped through all the hurdles, which are designed to make you not want to bother with it, then getting hunting rifles and shotguns and that is pretty straightforward. Currently, handguns are basically a total no-go unless you already had them. And, AR-15s or the like, also total no-go. Have been for, I think tomorrow is the 4-year anniversary of them banning the AR-15 without having confiscated a single 1 cent.
Got it. Our guys, do you have to keep those hidden, or can you take them out and utilize them?
For the ARs and the 1,500 different variants that they banned at the time, those got to stay locked up. They haven't. Mine haven't left my house where they're stored, and nobody's really have. If you're law enforcement or military, there's some different rules. If you have the type of business where you're allowed to have prohibited items, to train law enforcement or to do films or stuff like that, then there's some different rules. But for the general, for the civilian public, no.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, in the live stream, this is how this works. You ask us questions and we talk about it, or we're just going to talk about whatever we want, of course, but let us know if there's something you want to know from Ed. Ed, for the 4 people in the live stream who don't know who you are, give us like the synopsis and then catch us up on what's happened in the last year. Because I think I saw you about a year ago in person.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So I spent 20 years in the industrial world as a radiographer doing industrial radiography. And along with that, got into security consultant, radiation protection type work, and just kept branching out to the point where now I own an inspection company. We do inspections on pipelines, oil and gas, and hydroelectric, pressure vessels, basically everything. And also, I'm a licensed firearms instructor. I teach the Canadian firearms safety courses, which lets Canadians own firearms. I teach trauma medicine. There was a big lack in that. And so I got Iridium Solutions is one of the only companies in Canada registered with the Committee on Tactical Emergency Casualty Care as a registered educational provider. Or partner, I should say. And so I developed a course manual, and we've been deploying that to civilians, professionals, and law enforcement over the last year and a half. I have a web store, iridiumsolutions.ca, where I sell medical equipment, night vision, thermal optics, sometimes body armor, but I like to focus on those big three. We sell these shirts. We partner with really great companies like my night vision. I sell the Chinese stuff, but I also sell the made in Canada stuff that's been around for like 30 years. That's the stuff that most of NATO uses outside of America. For the medical kits, if I don't make it or put it together, then I've partnered with Refuge Medical. I'm the Canadian distributor for their kits. And so if you order off our website, they build it and ship it to you, which is kind of cool. And the proceeds from those kits actually get donated back into Grindstone Ministries and their Caleb House. Same with these shirts, like the merchandise that we do. $10 from every shirt that we sell goes to Caleb House. Now, you two obviously know who Bear Independent is, and Grindstone Ministries and Caleb House. But for anybody who doesn't know, it's a restoration facility for survivors of child sex trafficking, and it's one of the only facilities like it of its kind, and it's currently in construction, and they definitely need help. And so I've been behind that for quite some time. John, you were actually the one who connected Bear and I, right? Mm-hmm. John, 2 some odd years ago, sent a message to Bear and said, "Hey, you should know this guy," and then sent me the same message, and then we connected. And turns out that he and I were similar in a lot of ways, and so that clicked really well, and we've been helping each other ever since. So and so in the last year, since I came down and did Self-Reliance Festival, which was a great time, man. If anybody here, like, listen, there's probably going to be some Canadians that watch this and they're like, "Hey, going down to Tennessee is a long drive. It's like 4 days." Yeah, it is, and it's worth it. I'm not the only Canadian that's been down there. I know Toolman Tim goes down. He's become a mainstay there. But what a great time! What a great place! And I mean, I've been to the compound before. I've been going down to Tennessee since 2017. I've been running John's gear in really austere environments since 2013. If on the SOE back page, I used to post a lot of pictures of John's duffel bags in the very, very odd places. And that's been a lot of fun. I don't do that so much anymore just because social media takes a lot of time. And I think most of the guys on that page have seen most of that stuff. And I've gotten to the point where, it's kind of dark behind me, but if we lit that up, it would look sort of like when John walks around his shop, and it's pretty much full of SOE bags and rigs and stuff like that. So I've been around this stuff for a little while, and we're moving forward with that. We do business shit, and I like to train people. I don't like to go out and get kinetic anymore. I'm sort of getting a little old for that, but there's always a place for the old guys to tell the new guys what is stupid. And it seems like there's more and more new guys coming up all the time, asking the same questions over and over, right? And so it's like, all right, we got to answer the same thing over and over. And John, you know this because every night you go live and you answer almost exactly the same question all the time.
What am I looking at here? A sweatshop?
Well, that's all right, because I mean, we were talking to those kids when we were at gun shows 30 years ago, and then those kids walk up and they're like, "Hey, I'm on my 6th deployment as a Ranger." Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we had a lady drop her kid off, brought him to my shop, said, "Hey, my kid keeps getting in trouble. He's in military academy. Can he have a job here during the summer?" That kid, Austin, became a Ranger and did 6 deployments with the Rangers before he went to another unit.
Right. And those are the stories you're looking for. That's that whole 9s and 1s thing, right? You're weeding out all the chaff. All right, where can we find something that's that's good, something where we can put energy in and not have it look like a waste, because you outlay a lot of energy, like a lot, and you go, is this making a difference? We all only have so much currency of time available to us in our lives, and the more you spend on people who, you know, take what you've given them and just sort of pour it out, the more it makes you go, where are those nines and ones? And so that can be a little challenging. Certainly up where I'm at, it's remote, and there's a low population density, which is a huge blessing for me, because I don't have a lot of the gun problems that people complain about up here. I don't experience them so much because I can just go out in the woods where there is nobody and very quickly be where just nothing's really a problem. But that also means that finding people that, you know, over the long term are vertically aligned with what you're doing, that can be challenging. And I know, you know, down in Camden, that's the same issue where you run into, there's just a lack of quality people if you're not always bringing them in.
Well, we bring them in. I mean, we have,
right.
We have the Disneyland. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So we get to pick, you know, out of 1,000 guys a year, we pick the one that we want to keep.
And that's the only way to get it done out there, for sure.
Yep.
You just throw that bat signal out, and sometimes the bats show up.
Sometimes the mice show up. Okay. Question for Ed. Elcan made in Canada. What is your opinion on them?
Good to go.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't take, like those optics are going to help you see better, not shoot better, and certainly not fight better. And so, you just, whatever you get, it isn't the talisman or the symbol that is going to make you save the day when you need to save the day. That's you. So put an optic on there. If you want to spend a lot of money on optic, buy an Elcan, because they are freaking expensive. And if you end up with a Holosun on there and it hits where you shoot, that's fine too.
The pipeline Biden shut down under the guise of preserving nature. How damaging was that pipeline, and are we better off without it?
Pipelines always preserve nature better than any other way of transporting oil and gas. Every single time, even with the spills that have happened, there is nothing more damaging to, as far as spills go, than highway and rail accidents, and then ship accidents. Pipelines are way safer.
Rail, because it's so massive when it happens. It's not just one car involved. If you're not moving it in a pipeline, you're moving it on rail.
And the pipelines are so heavily regulated that they're maintained a lot better than the rail systems. The rail systems end up looking a lot more like monopolies, where the rail control can get away with not maintaining their stuff and hide it a lot better than a regulated system like a pipeline. So no, they're safer.
There's some people who didn't want to hear that, I'm sure. This morning I got up, I saw a cartoon with an electric generating factory with smoke coming out of it, and a line going to a rechargeable battery for an e-bike, and it says the biggest lie of the century, and it's like it turns green from battery to bike, and it's like got a person standing there all proud about their green energy.
Like alternate ways of pulling energy out of the universe around us is actually great. There's really no problem with it, but making it a political campaign that doesn't mesh well with physics or reality, that's the problem. It's like the whole green concept, it's virtuous, it's nice. The political side of it is absolutely a lie. It's 100% propaganda. I mean, I'm not just propping up oil and gas. Like, I work in hydro. I've been in lots of different industries, and there's at some point in our future, maybe we'll live to see it, there's going to be some technological breakthrough like cold fusion, and then all these energy problems that we currently face will go away, or we'll have the opportunity to go away. But we're not there yet. And it doesn't make any sense to put the brakes on our progress towards that by trying to find these inferior energy sources and use them first before we've found the next step. If you go away from oil and gas before you've found that stepping stone to like get us off the planet and pull, energy in from space or whatever it is, then you slow down the momentum and you say, hey, what we may have found in 20 years, maybe now it's 100 years. How's the planet going to do? How are people going to thrive in the meantime if you do that?
This is really similar to municipal internet. broadband internet that they wanted to provide. So especially in rural areas where internet was hard to get, they started doing block grants to provide free internet to people. And what happened as part of that is you locked in on a technology.
Sure.
Well, in the internet world, like that's great for about a year.
Yep.
And then it moves on and you're still required to use this old stuff that doesn't work very well over time that you can't get. And then the internet service is worse than if we just let internet providers access without a monopoly the area that wanted service. Like let the cable companies come in, but don't give them a cable monopoly. And let a second one come in and then maybe we'll have something.
Yeah, nothing I did here, any of the solar stuff we have, it's not so that I can feel good about the environment. It's so that I have power when nobody else has power. If my stuff goes off during a storm, I still have the ability to charge some stuff. And as long because they're not gas and oil companies anymore, they are energy companies. So as long as they can profit someplace, if they came out with some great thing, they would do everything they could to keep it from you so that you still have to pay them.
Yeah. The big oil companies that from the 1970s and 80s, they didn't switch to energy into these green technologies because governments forced them to. They don't care. They did it for profit. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Your electric cars are going to be the next plastic straw or plastic trash, but it's going to be the next free bag,
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there's only so much lithium that we can mine at such a rate to be able to, do these batteries before the cost to do it and the availability of the lithium disappears. And if we've got our head collectively as a society in the sand for the next 10 or 20 years while we're busy doing this, thinking that we're doing great for the planet, and we don't look around to try to actually figure out what the next good thing is while we're dealing with this stopgap, then we've missed out on a huge opportunity. And I think that's probably the biggest issue in the political landscape for the green energy. And I mean, for up here, our federal government just announced an additional 23% carbon tax on everything. So like, yay for that. But that's not how you solve problems, right? That's how governments stay alive. That's how that entity feeds itself.
I mean, the alcohol tax has definitely taken care of alcoholism.
Yeah, that's just all graft.
I know of at least one bioenergy company making biocoal that got a government grant to go carbon neutral. And in order to do that, what they did is they produced all this biocoal. And then instead of, selling it off to the industry to make pellets to heat houses, or instead of turning it into, agricultural fertilizer enhancement, they just took it and buried it in the ground and got paid more than they could have got paid selling it on the free markets with the federal grants.
Yep, that's part of that. All that Bill Gates farmland and forestry. They bought thousands and thousands of acres of forest to chop them down and bury the wood.
Yeah, that seems useful.
Yeah.
Okay. Red Flyer Media has concerns about CO2 pipelines. What's your take, Ed? We're going to ask about pipelines the whole time. You know that, right?
I'd be concerned I'd be curious what those concerns are. Like concerns with them leaking. That's the same concern of having any pipeline leak. Like where I live, in the town we live in 2018, we had a 36-inch pipeline rupture, self-immolate, and explode with 790 kPa of pressure in, or 790 psi of pressure in at the time, of natural gas. And I watched that explosion happen because, it was 10 kilometers away from me, and then participated in, pulling that pipeline out of the ground, testing it, evaluating the pipelines that were next to it, and then ultimately replacing the section of pipeline that came out. And like when those pipelines do lose containment, certainly localized disasters can be a part of that. But like outside of that, what would the concern be for transporting CO2 via pipeline rather than having it on a vehicle? I mean, I was involved in a rescue in the middle of a mountain pass in the middle of winter several years back, where I was trying to help a girl get out of a little Honda truck type thing that had been run head onto by a semi truck, and we were trying to cut this girl out because it was snowing, it was full ice, it was -15, and we needed to get her out of there. There was no cell service. It was complete dead zone. And around the corner, what came at full 100-kilometer-an-hour speed, because it couldn't see us, was a sulfur tanker truck. And the only thing that stopped that sulfur tanker truck from running into all of us was my pickup truck that was on the side of the road. And this isn't an ode to my pickup truck. This is just a point that these road accidents with materials that are being transported can happen anywhere. Pipeline accidents can only happen at pipelines or their distribution facilities. So at least if you have it buried in the ground, you have some way of knowing where the danger lies. And so if you need to protect yourself, like, you live near gas transmission lines or chlorine transmission lines, and you think, hey, if this facility blows up, I'm going to have chlorine vapors or clouds. I need to be able to don a gas mask or whatnot. You know generally what area that exists in because the pipeline is static. With road and rail, you don't know that. And so there's a real advantage to knowing where your threats are. And I like pipelines for that.
Don't the pipelines have automatic shutoffs every quarter mile or whatever?
Absolutely. But like in the case of a rupture, in almost every pipeline, even with the shutoff valves, everything all the contents that were in that line at pressure being pushed, those are going to vent, right? And so that becomes your spill, and that assumes that the shutoffs work perfectly or properly. They work in a timely manner, and that having that area go to emergency shutdown doesn't cause sort of catastrophic secondary effects at down the line.
Is there generally a detonation when that purges, or usually it just goes into the atmosphere, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. With the natural gas explosion that we had here, it was determined that the explosion part was actually a secondary detonation, because as the gas is being forced into the atmosphere, there isn't enough oxygen in that atmosphere there for it to ignite. It actually had to wait until most of the pressure left for the oxygen to be able to mix in with the natural gas, so it could actually ignite and then combust the natural gas that was in the cloud that had been built up.
So it ignited without a flame source.
So now that's the interesting thing. And I didn't mention this before, but I've worked with law enforcement for years and contracted with various agencies in the Canadian government, and we had definitely interest on whether or not this was domestic terrorism.
Got it.
Because you think about it, you go, hey, wait a second, like, how does that happen? Now the engineers come to the point that, well, the seam, opened itself up like a zipper, and the pressure was so much, the friction of the metal actually ripping itself open caused it to superheat, and it was still warm enough to ignite the mixture once the pressure lowered. And that's one explanation. Something a lot of people don't know about pipelines when it comes to the domestic terrorist piece is most pipelines aren't buried more than 1.5 meters below the surface of the ground. And that's disturbed earth, because when we put it back on there, we don't tamp it down. We don't want to crush the pipeline. It's generally pretty soft. And so a backhoe with an auger on it can definitely, do some damage. And so there's definitely been times where we've had these ruptures with secondary explosions where you can't find any remnants of, there's no satchel charge left over. There's no backhoe. There's nothing. But also in this particular event, like, it was 500 meters of scorched earth all the way around it. Scorched, like all the trees were scorched. The ones nearby, yeah. It took tons of metal and it flipped it around like spaghetti. And so it's reasonable that most of that, anything wouldn't be left there. So there are definitely multiple, angles that such a thing could be, and there are ways that you could have a secondary detonation when that happens.
Got it.
Okay, the concern with the CO2 is that it's heavy and depletes oxygen immediately. So
I think that would be a real concern if you're in a confined space, if you're working in a low-lying area. I think out in the world, two things. First of all, when you've got lots of oxygen and you've got topography where wind moves over top of it, then you have the opportunity to have your CO2 be moved away so that it won't actually kill you, right? Like the problem isn't CO2 in the air or in the environment. We have that anyways. We breathe in, we breathe out. The problem is having so much of it that you can't breathe. And CO2 detectors are pretty easy to come by if you think you're in a dangerous place. I would say that, that's the sort of thing that is really easy to test for. And then if you're in open air, my concern level goes down. Now, if you're inside a facility or around a facility that's transporting them, then I want to be really careful. I want to know where the CO2 is for sure.
Yeah. Because a gas mask isn't going to help you get oxygen if there's no oxygen.
In almost no case can you make oxygen, with your gas mask. There are some filters that, for short periods of time will actually make a little bit of oxygen, and they're good for, escaping fires and stuff like that. But it's so short term that it has to be for evacuation. You do work in it, right? And most people aren't ready to go put on, a self-contained breathing apparatus and just go do their normal job unless they're trained for that. In which case, the CO2 shouldn't be the big problem, right? Because you've received the training that sort of makes that not a fear factor anymore.
Yeah, all I can think is that guy you had wear the mask and go running at Self-Reliance Festival in the mask and then do push-ups.
Right. And that shit is hard.
Everybody wants to buy that gas mask. They don't want to wear it though.
I've noticed that there's been a sort of a muting down of people panic buying gas masks, which I'm a fan of.
Well, Mira did great with the advertising, man. It's just sexy.
They did. Yeah. Yeah. Now, of course, higher quality gas masks have started to come on the market. Avon's now selling direct to consumers. Now, I still sell the Mira gas masks. I've said right since day one that they are sort of medium range gas masks, and the best thing about them is you can buy them. And so there were higher quality gas masks out there. That's but the price is a lot higher. But what Mira did was dive tank. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. But Mira was able to target people really effectively who weren't sure that World War III, wasn't about to get kinetic on soil outside of the sort of localized Ukraine-Russia area. And then, it's the same thing, the sort of civilian apathy as wars drag on, or conflicts, I guess in this case, where, 2 years into it, you haven't needed to pull out a gas mask. You're probably not panicking about a gas mask. You're probably now thinking about, okay, well, what happens if, all the electricity goes off, or, my bills go up, or whatever, right?
My bills go up.
Yeah, your effort would be better spent growing a garden right now. I mean, you don't even see them using gas masks over in Ukraine right now.
Well, and I mean, when I came down and gave that talk about radiation protection at SRF, one of the points that I was attempting to drive home to just about everybody is your efforts are always better prepared to have control over your food source, your water source, and how you poop if you can't leave your house. And if you can just do that for 2 weeks or 3 weeks without leaving your house and killing each other inside of your house without leaving, then all these problems tend to work themselves out.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Does Ed teach tactical gun training or firearm safety?
Yes.
I love how he gets right to the point. One time I got to interview the founder of Whole Foods, and people would ask him questions, or we would ask him questions, and if it was a one-word answer, he would just say the one word and no explanation, and I loved it.
Yes.
And other people hated it. I was like, well, I mean, you didn't say why, you just said if. Yes or no.
So I don't have a tactical training school. And really, there's not a lot of that up here in Canada. There's a very small number of people who even really want that. Like, really, most people would like to pretend they want that, but don't want it. And so I teach the firearm safety classes that are required for licensing up here. And I have and do teach sort of private tactical training courses. In Canada, you don't have the opportunity to, get behind the Second Amendment that the Americans have, or whatever equivalent thing anywhere else in the world, and protect yourself or defend yourself with some degree that you're not going to jail. Here, you are, in fact, that's that whole 3 fights thing, right? You got your physical fight, your mental fight, and your legal fight. That legal fight's going to get you almost before the physical fight is ended up here. There's really no right to do that. And so a lot of people don't like to hear that, like, when it comes to tactical training, it's, it's not really about the gun. It never has been, but most people want it to be about the gun, right? The root word of gunfight being fight, not gun. And so tactical training ends up being a lot more of a mindset piece. And the people that I've seen most often are coming to me, they're looking for the actual mechanics piece. And it doesn't serve well. And so where I can help more people is by teaching them trauma medicine, teaching them how, when, and why to put a tourniquet on or a chest seal or not, how to make good 911 calls, how to do things that can intervene and save lives quickly. And that's sort of where my efforts have been focused.
Yeah. The biggest fight I have is with myself.
Same for everybody.
Yeah. So Sonny Puzikas was out recently, and in his session, he was talking about how to de-escalate situations.
Right.
Because when you're carrying a gun, it's a gunfight.
Right.
So now you don't need to be getting up in people's faces and fighting.
Well, if you're carrying a gun, it's a fight that includes a gun. There's no guarantee that you're going to be in a gunfight. There's no guarantee that, you're not going to get shot with your gun. There's no guarantee that you're not going to get stabbed a dozen times. The gun it's this part of it. We love to focus on it because it's it can do a lot of damage. It's an equalizer in force if used appropriately. So you can take a very small person and equalize force to a very large person with the application of a firearm. But I love that idea of like, hey, see the fight before it happens and leave. And if you can do that, rock and roll. That's a win.
Think of how many people are at the mall or Walmart or whatever, and they're waiting for that parking spot, and somebody whips in, and they roll up there and escalate that. That's my parking space, right? You don't know whether that guy's willing to take your life that day. If you get shot, it doesn't matter whether you were right or wrong. You still got shot. Like that might put you in a wheelchair. You might walk in circles the rest of your life. You have no idea when you could have just got another parking space. And how often does that happen when you have children with you? We hear those stories all the time, man. I wish I'd have just driven past. That's always what they say.
Yeah. And in 2024, after the last 3 years of just about everybody's, getting their mental health bogged down, people are in really fucked up states, and people who you would think are just going to, be normal and be cool may not be very suddenly. And so it makes a lot of sense to, just try to avoid conflict as much as possible. And if it comes to you, then that's when it's time to, reduce it to a smoking pile of ashes on the ground. But short of that, maybe you don't have to.
Correct. And walk around cognizant of threat as well. Like this, do not walk around like this. This thing is in your pocket. You are looking around, right? If you were to present yourself as a harder target, you're most likely not going to be the target.
Better than 95% of your potential threats and aggressors are going to absolutely find somebody else to pick on if you make eye contact, or if you look like you're going to look at them before they move in on you.
Yeah. Get big, get loud, like draw attention.
Yeah.
And the most tempting place to look at your phone is the gas station while filling your tank.
Yeah.
Which is about the worst place to do it.
And more and more, when I get fuel, you see some person that should not be there.
Yeah. Yep.
That happens to me all the time on road trips.
Yeah, it's more
like frequent. I really try to make sure it's at least daylight so I can see further to get gas and not have to do the after dark. I'm turning into my grandparents. Like, I don't drive after dark.
I encourage anybody who can make it happen to get a membership at some sort of Cardlock program, right? Like we've got Co-op up here and UFA and all that. But if you start fueling up at Cardlocks, they tend to have a lot less people at them. They're not, Cardlocks, where there isn't a retail gas station attached to them, they tend to have truckers at them and farmers at them and, people who are working just doing jobs and shit like that. But they tend to have a lot less people hanging around them because there's no gas station, for them to hang around at. They can't get into the bathroom because you have to use the card to get in there. And so if you can transition away from using those retail gas stations, and you probably save a few cents a gallon or liter, depending on where you're at too, you start setting yourself up for success where you're planning your trips, especially long road trips. Like, hey, I'm going to go to this card lock and then this card lock. And even if it's more empty, and so you have less people there to help you, you have better situational control of the area because you can drive around there and see if there's anybody at the card lock. And if there's nobody at the card lock, it's nice and empty, then your threat level is immediately reduced because there's less people there, right? So that's a good piece of advice.
Who are you kidding, Josh Winnie? We know you don't have no leather holster.
Hi, Chef. Hello, everyone in the chat. Yeah, I've got the chat up here on this other screen I haven't been looking at. Ed, is Justin Trudeau going to get reelected? Maybe.
Do you think he got elected this time?
Yeah, right. And so, like, you have to understand, as shitty as this might sound to younger people, and as probably normal as this sounds to older people, you get what you ask for or what you allow to happen. And so, if the majority of my country's population, which the majority of them don't live where I live, don't go to the places I go, if they're all going to vote for, the same last 8 years again, then yeah, he might get reelected. Do I believe this? We do this thing where we take celebrities, figureheads, and we attribute all the actions of apparatus that go behind the celebrities of the figureheads to those people, right? And I mean, it's the same for you guys, Biden and Donald Trump, right? And whoever you want to talk about. It's interesting to talk about the person, but it's a smokescreen because really it's the apparatus behind it that's doing it. And so what you really have to ask yourself is, in Canada, are all the federal liberals who make up the cabinet and the Senate, are they going to be in power after the next election? And if they are, this country is going to look exactly the same.
Yeah, that's the totem. Those are just puppets.
You're 100% correct.
Is it not true that Gavin Newsom and Trudeau are actually the same person?
I don't know, but there's some pretty convincing pictures of Fidel Castro.
Yep. Yeah, there's pictures of his mom with Fidel Castro.
Sure,
at a bunch of parties. Yeah,
indeed. And if that were to turn out to be true, I honestly wouldn't give a shit. Something you said half a decade ago: if it doesn't affect the temperature of the water in my pool, I don't care about it.
Yeah, that came from Spearco.
Right. And you might argue that, well, hell, when Justin Trudeau takes your guns away, it affects your pool. And when he increases your heating bill, it, because of the carbon tax, it affects your pool. Those are all end states that I can manage. Right? Because the truth is, I say I don't care about it because I'm busy taking care of myself. The people who care about it and who are like, they're really worked up about it. My question is, have you done all the things to make sure that you're taken care of in spite of all this? And if not, there's that whole keep getting after it piece, because there's a little bit of work that maybe needs to be done there.
Yeah, we lose
every
a lot
minute
of them.
you waste worrying about that is a minute you are not building resistance to it.
Yeah, we lose
especially
a lot of
for
them.
something you can't control. Sorry, John, I just interrupted you.
we lose a lot of them when you say fitness is free. They want to buy that pallet of food, or they want to buy that gas mask, but you got a 50% body mass index, right? We should work on that, which costs nothing.
But to everybody listening here, all you have to do is go to any tire store with a trailer, any tire store, and they will happily give you the biggest tire that you can put on that trailer for free. And then you have to take that thing home and put it in your front yard and your backyard. And every day when you look at that stupid fucking tire that hurts you every time you throw it around, you have to pick it up and throw it around. Free.
You should pay a neighbor kid to block your driveway, so you have to move it when you come home.
Hey, and like if you live up where it gets cold and icy, well, actually it gets icy down there. You guys get great sheet ice. In the middle of the winter, you wrap a big thick piece of rope around that tire, and you hook onto that thing, and you tug and tug and tug. And if you don't move it, but you just pull against it, you've done something.
Yeah, just a wheelbarrow with wet dirt, wet mulch, man. It works great.
And like while you're or digging swales in your yard, like while you're doing things that improve your life, you can be doing things that improve your body. And if you're busy doing things that improve both your life and your body, you're probably doing things that improve your mind. You're probably doing things that make your heart better, that make you feel better. You're giving yourself the opportunity to think about new ways that you can do things better.
Yeah.
Yep. Homestead Medical says he curses you every time he uses the tire. And I think everybody should print out a laminated picture of Ed and mail it to him so he can just stick that on the tire.
Good. Keep getting after it, Chuck.
If you don't have the solution to a problem you're working on, you're just not sweated enough. If you go and sweat that out, the answer will come. It'll definitely clear your mind up.
And I don't purport to be a big fitness guy, and I don't purport to be, super jacked. I'm 41 years old. I have what used to be a really impressive, 400-pound deadlift back when I was a kid. Nowadays, people can deadlift 500, 600, 700 pounds pretty regularly. The difference is every time I see those stupid weights, I pick them up and put them down and then keep going about my day. That's it. That's all that I'm doing that's different than everybody else. Well, not everybody, obviously.
Yep. Great summertime use for a 12-pound maul.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so fitness is really important. I think we've established that. I really enjoy John's gym. The thing I love about your gym the most when I got to use it is how empty it was. That's very nice. And I can't go to a gym with other people and work out. I can't. It's too distracting. People are dumb. People are everywhere. People being around doesn't work for me. So I have to do that, in solitude. And I'll bet there's lots of people who are living who find the same thing. They try the gym. They're like, nah, this sucks. Well, for you, there's this, there's the whole garage gym stuff. There's the find a rock and throw it stuff. And, it's kind of cliche, but the reason that these expressions get overused is because they're effective.
And the same goes for nutrition.
Eat more meat.
Eat meat. Have you guys seen the all the sit-ins and all the protests going on at all the college campuses, all the woke colleges right now in the United States? They just had one at UC Davis. It's still ongoing, but somebody dropped off a backpack of mice, and it is said that they are laboratory mice, and they had all kinds of like sores and such on them. That came out. I heard that a couple hours ago today. So who knows whether anything will come of that or not, but
would have been cooler if they were radioactive spiders.
Well, yeah, ice spiders.
Would have made a way bigger impression.
Yeah.
So I heard about protests only because a friend of mine was trying to go to a show at UCLA and they canceled the music because there was protests outside.
Let them protest. Let them burn those schools down. What do we care?
The only thing I would care about is empowering their infantilism. They're acting like children with the bodies of adults and the capabilities of adults, and I find that disappointing. Yeah,
well, the professors are right in the middle of it.
The professors, in many cases, are part of it. Have fostered it.
That's how those kids got that way.
Yeah.
What's the logical consequence? That's what they need.
Chaos and entropy are the logical consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the Israel stuff.
I mean, you shut down the campus, you shut down the college, you now cannot go to college. That's what happens.
My point exactly.
Yeah.
When people want to disfigure their kids, we get up in arms over it, and we have to save the kids. That just removes their children from your children's future. Those are no longer roadblocks. Let them do what they're going to do to their families.
Yeah, and that goes back to the whole, you affect the things and the people around you that you can see, touch, taste, smell, and it evolves out from there. And it doesn't have to get very far away from where you physically are before you can absolutely ignore it and find that it doesn't really matter if you do. Like, it doesn't change your world. Your grass, your carrots, they still grow. The rain still falls and you can still capture it. The sun's still out there. And so, like, you could ignore a lot of the bullshit that's going on in the world and find out really fast that, hey, that really wasn't a big deal for me. And I mean, if it is a big deal for you and you ignore it, like, the taxes and shit like that, then it'll come to you, like it'll make its way to you. There's no doubt about that. But when it comes to this, I don't know, plague of wokeism that we're living in right now, we probably need 1 or 2 generations to be removed from it before it eventually dies itself out. Because the other side of it, that people love to pontificate on is that, we're just gonna jock up, plate carriers, night vision, 556, 762, good to go. We'll just take care of this problem on our own. Most of those people have never scraped a body off the ground afterwards. And, that's the first of the problems that you immediately have to deal with after that kind of solution. So I think that's kind of a childish solution in most cases too, unless, violence is brought to you.
Yeah, that's it. Thinking about why you're killing somebody verbally when you say, I'm just going to annihilate them, but you're never going to, and how dumb the reason is. Like a lot of fights that I hear about are for stupid things. It's that guy knocked over my beer. Okay.
Yeah.
And your beer costs $8 these days.
A lot of wars you hear about are for stupid things.
Yeah.
World War I was fought by children that knew each other. I mean, they played in the same playrooms together.
Yeah.
We could have gone and seen some riots. We could have gone and seen some protests, right? But none of that shit was happening where we were. We knew where not to go. We could have driven a couple hours and seen that, but we didn't have any of that nonsense happening here.
Yeah. Yep. Don't go to stupid places with stupid people
and do stupid things.
And if you just do that, you're probably going to have a great life.
And if you realize you're in a stupid place, leave it. Like the gut thing is so under-noted.
One of the things especially when I'm teaching people medical stuff, one of the most, the biggest things that I find I'm teaching, especially civilians, is permission to act. It's one of the biggest things that I try to impart, because it seems like more and more people think that, hey, somebody should do something, and they may even know what to do. But for whatever reason, they don't have these unlock codes in their brain, like, hey, I can do this. I'm going to do something. And to include leaving shitty situations. There are so many people that stay in perilous situations because they don't think they have permission to just offend somebody and leave, to just piss somebody off by saying, I don't like this, I'm leaving. And I think we should probably help people find that more, rather than telling them they're doing the right thing by continuing with that.
Or they stand and film it.
Well, and that's the people who are standing and filming, by and large, could absolutely help, may even know how to help, but they don't think they have permission to do anything. And so they think, well, I can just stand here and film this and then I'm doing something. Yeah. It's because they don't feel like they have permission to step in and solve the problem, or just go about their day.
Yeah. When least expected, you're elected.
Right.
If you're not sure what to do, if you do something, you have a 50-50 chance it's the right thing anyways.
And if you just start on any course, you can now turn. But take something completely stationary and try to turn the wheels. It's fucking hard. But if you're moving, it's really easy to course correct, right? So just start in most of those cases.
Why do you suppose people have that hesitation? Is it just societal programming, or?
I think it is societal programming. People, they don't even play sports anymore. Kids are not physical. They've never had any physical contact. We sue people into oblivion, Good Samaritan stuff and everything going on. People just don't want to be involved with it.
We are encouraged to teach our children to ask permission for everything from the time that they are able to. Yeah. Rather than encouraging parents to teach their children to be solutions oriented. Hey, there's a problem. Let's see if I can do something about it. And then if mom and dad come and say, hey, that was not the right thing, it doesn't mean don't do things. That means do it differently next time. So I think from the point where children can start understanding words, this is a parental thing first and foremost. And if you change that, if you change the way that parents, program their children, because it is programming, that we do for our kids. If you modify that, then the societal problem sort of fixes itself.
It's allowed versus able. It's the same
Yeah.
difference. Are you injured or does it hurt?
Yep.
And we don't allow kids to have physical difficulties any longer. We don't let them skin their knees, and we don't let them find out on their own. I mean, as a kid, everybody I knew had stuck something in a light socket. How do you know that thing shocks you? How do you know that stove burns you?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
they get it out when we were young. It's no longer there. It's not a mystery. Somebody taught us how to use matches. We didn't have to catch shit on fire.
And it's not that there aren't better techniques for understanding how kids are going to react to things and better ways for parenting. It's not that any of that always progresses from generation to generation. The thing is, you don't give up on all the other stuff just because you have some new, better way of doing a few things. You still have to teach your children to do it the proper way, right? Like raise them up the way they're supposed to go, and they won't forget it when they're older. And so you don't supplant all the old stuff that works with the new improved stuff. You merge them together and make better people. And I think we've suffered one, maybe two generations that have lost that because, well, for whatever reason, I don't know. I would speculate that propaganda is probably a big part of it. Changing societal norms are probably a big part of it, but it'd be really difficult to nail it down.
Yeah, like this one. I'm always telling my kids to stop coming to me complaining about a problem and tell them to come to me with a solution.
Absolutely.
Which, if you do that at your job, you'll either get fired because your boss is terrible, or they'll
Or
love you.
promoted. Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you don't want to be at the job where you're fired anyway. So
right, and like look for a solution. Like look and act. And as a father of two young rambunctious boys, I want them to figure something out. And I want them to be wrong. And I tell them, listen, I expect that you're not going to be right, that you're going to get it wrong. All I'm looking for is for you to act. And we'll course correct, what you did wrong, because that's my job to show you how to do it properly. But it's your job to start moving, because I can't do that for you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right? You're not in diapers anymore. So now you can move on your own. That means you have to. And then you look to those around you who are older, wiser, or more experienced, and you get their input on how to do it better. It's the same way we go about learning from experts. The same way we have people teach us things. It's the same, when it comes to adult learning. It's really the same concepts. I mean, probably more parents could stand to treat their children like adults in some respects, not in all, but in some. At least treat them to have the capacity to think and, make decisions the way you would an adult that you don't know.
Well, you don't have context to be flexible in making decisions later. If you haven't, lived in that crappy apartment where everything broke and you had to learn that there's a water shut off. And so you shut off the water that one time, and now every water problem, you're like, where's the shut off? It's the first thing you do before you figure it out. If you don't have that experience, there's nothing to draw from.
Yeah.
Later in life.
Yep. Absolutely.
So it's absolutely great to do that. He says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And then Ken's saying, so true, Adam. Fortunately, I never had that problem. That's because you stuck a butter knife in a socket, Ken.
There's one here. It says, what's the best non-tourist place to visit in Canada? What's the best time of year? It depends. What are you into? I'm from northern British Columbia, where there's mountains and boreal forest and moose and bears everywhere. And for me, that's probably the best place to be in the entire world. But if you're from somewhere where it's, tropical and warm, I wouldn't recommend where I'm from. If you don't like mosquitoes, like big giant mosquitoes, this isn't probably a great place. But the honest answer from me is, I don't travel all that much. I stay pretty much where I'm at, in the same sort of 11 or 1200 kilometer radius. I don't go to the parts of Canada where the people that I don't like are. And that's where most of the people in Canada are. And I just don't go there. So I don't know. But what I do know is British Columbia, where I live, you can find beauty here, no matter what you're into, somewhere.
At many times of year.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But you just have to be willing to accept that, beauty, I guess put it this way. If you're the type of person who can go to somewhere where there is nobody or almost nobody and find that beautiful, then I've got the place for you. And that's Northern BC.
Yep. I don't know that I've been that far into BC because my first raw oyster was from a beach there.
Okay.
I don't know
Yep.
which beach because I was 10 and my uncle cut it open, handed it to me. I slurped it down because he told me how good it was. And I almost threw up because it was terrible. Now I love them, but at the time it was like unlike anything I had ever experienced. And it was all gritty with sand and, all of the things, but.
Then sounds like it really made an impression.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in my 50s remembering when I was 10 and that oyster went down, but.
Yep. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's that acquired taste they talk about.
Yeah. Well, the ones in the restaurant, they've let them expel
Filter.
the sand, so it's a little bit nicer. Now I serve them at workshops sometimes. What's your thoughts on no brown bear hunting in Canada?
A political decision, not scientific, not to do with conservation whatsoever.
That's too bad.
It's like most political decisions where they literally ignored what the conservation scientists were telling them. It's a poor decision. And it's gonna come back to bite them in the ass.
Literally, probably.
Well, like you can still, if you're in a defensive encounter with a brown bear or a grizzly bear or a black bear or really any predator, you're still able to shoot them and walk away from it, and that's probably okay. And so but specifically the hunting has been canceled. And when you the thing is, there was compulsory reporting on every bear that was killed, and so when we allowed grizzlies to be hunted, then we actually got really good indications of where they lived, what their health was, how big they were living, what their diet was. Like, we got really great data about them. And now we just lost that. And so when we make the inevitable decision to reopen the grizzly bear hunt because we want this scientific data, what's going to happen is we're going to be starting from ground zero with a whole new, 2 or 3 or 4 generations removed of bear than the data we previously had. And so we'll be building it from scratch, right?
And the way we got turkeys and deer back in the United States after the Civil War was hunting.
Yeah, I mean, this is an unfortunate reality for some people these days, but hunters and trappers have always been the number one conservationists of animals.
That's where all the money comes from.
And not only that, but because it's in their best interest to not slaughter all the animals so that there are more animals for next year.
Yeah, I think turkey were introduced in the 90s here in Tennessee, back into Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yep. Estes Park wouldn't allow hunting of elk for a year and finally reopened it because of how much overpopulation they had, right?
Well, population and dwindling genetics, poor genetics.
Yes, exactly that. And the same, like the way we do our elk hunts here, it's problematic because we are essentially culling the young, strong ones and leaving the old, aged ones who need to go. We're leaving them, and that's we really want the young, strong ones to be breeding the next generation, and that's not the decision that's been made. And so, and I don't think that's unilaterally across all of hunting in Canada. Like I said, I'm from BC and I don't hunt in Ontario or Manitoba, but some of those decisions, like, they could be done so much better. And with respect to conserving wild animals, that's one area where I think a lot of, like, both our countries fail at that in a lot of respects. Same issue with wild horses.
Yeah, wild horses are, you don't want to come across one of those mad at you in a dark alley either, or just saying, they'll mess you up.
And same thing, and probably all the Canadians who are on here or will look later will know this. Moose, it's the same. In fact, a cow moose in the wild is one of the more threatening things you can come across. So if you find yourself with a moose just sort of standing there letting you approach it, you should exercise some intelligence and probably leave.
But those bison commercials, those bison videos are so good.
So I was 700 kilometers north of where I am now, on the border between British Columbia and Alberta, in the middle of the winter one time, a place called Ring Border. And I was running around in an X-ray truck with another guy. So that means we have a radioactive isotope and a dark room, and we're taking X-rays of welds throughout the winter. And we were driving around. We'd been driving past this hill beside the road for 3 or 4 days. And on day 4, as we drove past this exact same spot, the hill stood up, and it was this snow-covered male bison. And that wasn't enough. The guy who was driving at the time thought it would be funny to go and park beside the female bison that was just at the end of the road, with my side of the truck right this far away from her face. And that young lady, that bison, was the size of the cab of that pickup truck. And friendly enough, I'm still here. But
and he lived to tell about it.
it's the sort of thing where that's not one of those great ideas. That came from the drunk idea fairy, and it's probably best to ignore that one in the future. But yeah, they're massive, and they can do a lot of damage if they want to.
Yeah. In Oregon, they have like a wildlife safari, and all the warnings about windows down around lions and getting out of your car around lions that people ignore.
Yeah.
Around lions.
And again, like I think those are people who've had a really easy life, who've never really had anything difficult or challenging or go wrong, who don't know that things can go wrong. And there's an education piece that's required there for sure.
Yep. Good rule. Thanks, Josh. I don't know what that rule was.
To be a good employee, identifying one problem, give your boss 3 solution options, tell the boss one option you think will be the best and why. John, what's an example of where Josh did that for you?
I don't know. I was just thinking about that. I don't think Josh gave me options. He just Hey, John, this is what you're having to eat. Yeah. No, he just fixed the problem, man. Josh was never just the chef. I'm like, where's that guy at? And he's up on the roof fixing the air vents, or he's out in the feed house, or he's taking Josh didn't just cook here. Josh did a lot of other things.
Yeah. And still maintains the relationship, and, runs roughshod on the live streams and kicks people out when they need to be kicked out, puts up the posts. So, still an active part.
Yeah. He's a very rare person that truly had my best interest. He protected me from myself.
Yeah.
Also made my life easier, and which allowed me to perform in other areas, beyond where I would have. He definitely made me better.
And like, as far as the being a good employee piece, whatever you have to do to make somebody that you used to work for say shit like that about you, that's what you should do to be a good employee.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what you should do to become a good leader someday too.
Well said.
Yeah. Okay. So when we were emailing before this, you mentioned that you've been off social media to invest more time in your family. What brought you there, and what does that look like?
The world's kind of fucked right now, at large, right? And I've got elementary school age children, and I woke up one day and said it would be best if they saw me more. I spent 20 years, getting in a vehicle and driving away all the time. And at this point, where things are going, I mean, being a gun guy and sort of who I am is antithetical to a lot of the American culture. Never mind the Canadian culture up here. And so I need my boys, at the crux of it, to understand where I come from and to get some of that, not just to read it in my memoirs or see my social media, after I'm dead, should I die tomorrow. I need them to really understand where the things I believe come from. And there's really only one effective way to do that, and that's to be there. And so that's something I've been really focusing on. And not just this year, but I had been juggling a lot of things leading up into this year and needed to make sure I had the right things juggled the highest in the air. And my family is the number one thing.
How did you decide which things had to be let go?
If it doesn't affect the temperature of my pool, I don't care about it.
Was that a hard mindset change for you, or was that
Fuck
pretty
no.
easy to yeah?
No. None of that stuff has been like let go forever. It's just, where do I prioritize my time in any given day? And if that means that, the businesses that I run aren't $1 million businesses now, I'm fine with it. I'm not here to make all the money in the world. I really don't care about that. I got other priorities. And so it also means that I don't push as hard at trying to do sell through retail traffic. One of the advantages that both of you have, like Nicole, you are creating coffee and distributing it. That is a manufacturing process. John, evidently, everything you do is as a manufacturer. As a retailer, I found that a lot of my time, energy in the day was put into dealing with retail side of the business, where I'm not able to be creative. I am, but it's limited. And so taking a pause on that, it's not that I'm not selling things anymore. It's that I'm not putting a lot of energy into that, and doing things where I can actually help people. Because like when I go to do a 2-day trauma medicine training class, it's a 7-day spin up to get everything set up, to get everything lined up. Not even just getting the people in the venue, but like making sure everything's right, figuring out how I'm gonna put out the training, what the people are, what they need, what I can do for them, how I can change things so it's most effective for that class. And it provides me with a lot more really better feedback on how to do it in the future. And you don't get that from selling somebody something, putting it in a box and shipping it out. They get something, but I don't get that feedback that says, how do I do things better? And so I've been focusing on the things that give me that feedback of how I can improve myself. And training is a big one. And then also the industrial inspections, because I have to engage the brain a lot more for a wide range of things on a daily basis, because I'm certified and qualified to inspect such a wide range of things that it's always something different. So that's what I mean by, my thought process on how I've looked at what things I don't have to do. Now, if you look at my Instagram page, because my YouTube's not very big, you'll see that 90% of the content that's on there is original content. I don't repost a lot of things. I don't do memes at all. Most of that I built. Most of those photos I took, even though I have really cool friends who are really good at taking photos. I'm pretty good at it too. And so, but it takes a lot of time to build those. And I have to ask myself, even though they look cool and they feel good to me, are they important and urgent? Is it? And so those questions are the sorts of things that I'm looking at answering better this year. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to make sure that I'm there to, as much as possible, pick up my boys after school, talk to their teachers, see what's going on, see where we can step in and improve things for them. And then find better ways to train adults in the things that I teach them.
That's really awesome. A good friend of mine in Utah told me once that he organized his entire day schedule while his kids were teenager, and he had 5 kids, so you can imagine what religion he might be coming from, that he was home and not on a call when his kids came home or had a transition time of any kind. So if they came back from a long trip or something, he was there. He said because there was a short 15-minute window in those transition times when, as teenagers who are kind of in that introspective phase, they would open up, and that's when he'd learn what was really going on. And when they'd have that real connection.
Yeah.
And so I'd be on the phone with him for work, and he'd be like, I got to go. My kid's coming home.
Yeah.
And I think that was that's a very deep insight to get, and a very helpful tool as a parent to know. Asking over dinner may not do it. It's too late.
I've got good clients locally who all know, understand, and accept that, like, when they want me to come do work for them or come consult with them, that it's going to be like after the kids go to school or before the kids get off school. That time during the day, that's available. And then there's other times in the day where it's just, I'm not available. And I'm okay with whatever, let's call it business opportunities that loses me. That's fine. Because of the other opportunities I get. Like my boys know when we get in the truck and drive home after school, on the days when I can pick them up, what's one thing that happened today at school? And not just how was school? It was good, Dad. That's not enough. I need to know one thing that happened. And we're going to start a conversation, and, there's 15 minutes where you're my captive audience in the truck. And, we're going to talk about something that happened in school so that we can work off of that or just, be present with each other. I definitely don't want to die from whatever in the future and leave them wondering what I was about and why I lived the way I did. I don't want that.
So here's a fun hypothetical for you. Over the last 3 or 4 days, there were a bunch of people at my place, and we were doing a workshop. And one of the recurring questions that came up was, once I go down a path to make my life better and I decide to do something and I get all the way into it and then discover I hate doing this, how do I extricate myself from that? Like what words of advice would you give to people in that situation?
Stop.
John, you want to go first?
Yeah, stop.
You didn't get all the way down the path.
Yeah, or stop. If you get goats, everybody gets goats, and they realize I don't like goats, well then don't have goats.
Yeah. Everywhere you go, there you are, right? That's been said before. And the thing is, people think that when they change their physical situation, that things will change. But you're the one who needs to change. Now, if you're a person who can change yourself and change and thereby change the situation, then by definition, you're never going to get all the way down a path and find out, oh, this is just somewhere I didn't want to be, because you're going to be changing and evolving as you walk down that path, right? The end is when you're no longer taking a breath. That's the end. Everything else, you have the opportunity to change your direction, right? Change by 2 degrees, a degree, 10 degrees, go do a complete 180. That's all available.
This is 100% why I roast coffee and I'm not a duck egg deliverer. Because selling duck eggs was one of the things I tried. And I discovered that means you're driving eggs around all the time, and that's not what I want to do.
Right. But you didn't get to where you had a duck egg corporation with 1,000 employees, right? That was, multinational, and then go, oh, I hate this.
Yeah.
We never get that far before the opportunity to be like, self-examine and go, this is not for me. Before that happens, that opportunity exists. You just have to be, brave enough to take a different step.
And it 100% is okay to give up.
I would argue that give up just means change course.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Because otherwise, like the only true definition of give up is sit down in the middle of your floor and do nothing for the rest of your life.
Dean's cracking me up right now. Goat people. Bless their hearts.
I learned what bless your heart means the first time I came to the southern United States.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like the goat conversation. Hey, how come you don't have goats? We had goats. I don't like goats. But then there's 20 more exchanges as to why they think you should have goats. Like, if you want goats, go get goats. I'm just telling you why we don't have goats. Yeah. I don't care what you do at your place. You asked me, I gave you the information. You're armed with it. Now act on it or don't act on it.
When you find, or when you have those conversations and they don't receive the information, how many times are you going to try giving it to them again before you decide that, oh, you know what, their radar is just turned off, there's no point here?
Well, a lot of it's theatrics, right? It happens on a live feed. Last night we had 50,000 people. By the time we stopped the live feed, we had 50,000 views. Sure. So when we go back and forth a couple of times, I'll entertain it and give them the real information. But when you realize that it's going nowhere, I'll be harsh with it. But that's more for theatrics than anything else. And if you come back the next night and it's actually affecting my bandwidth, I'll just remove you from everything that's my life on the internet. I'll just push a button. Like, we don't need moderation. We don't need community guidelines. I can just push a button and never see anything that is you again. And if people did that on the internet would be a much more useful place for them probably. But a lot of it is theatrics. It's not about hammering that guy. It's more for the show for the other 10,000 people. And every night when I'm doing something along those lines, somebody comes on with fart jokes or whatever, and I'm a little harsh to them. Guys are like, man, I really like what this guy's saying. I just subscribed and I bought a t-shirt. So, I mean, it pays.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to realize when you're working with somebody or responding to somebody who's negative in your feed that you're not responding to them. You're responding for the other people who support you. And so when you respond, you need to realize who your target is. Your target is not the person. You're not trying to change their mind, especially if their mind is just absurdly made up in one place. Like, you kill babies and eat them for dinner. If they think that about you, that's what they think. Yeah, why would that change? They've already come at it from a completely non-informed point of view. This is a good one. One of the toughest things to do is look at a large paycheck for something you hate and let it go. Let me tell you what that does to your heart over the long term as far as your health. Psychological damage from doing something you hate can really hurt you physically. And is it more expensive to move on from that large paycheck or to have a heart condition that you've got to deal with later in life? That's my question. Or whatever else the repercussion may be.
I think walking away from the idea of success. So a large paycheck is, a measure of success, and walking away from it because, you have some other thing you need to do, or you just really hate how you got that. I think that is one of the hardest things to do because you are walking away from yourself. Like that's a you versus you thing in that situation. You're saying, hey, me from the past, like past Ed got to the point where he's doing this thing where he makes a lot of money, but he hates it. How does future Ed beat past Ed? How do I make that happen? And that's tough, but it's a worthwhile goal. But yeah, very difficult for sure.
I think the best thing I learned from John, who looks like he's frozen right now, so hopefully he'll be back. Yeah, there he is. He's having a little internet issue. Is confidence in the fact that I can always make money somehow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you created it yourself, you didn't just fall into it. Somebody didn't give it to you. Just take what you did on the other thing and just change the product.
Yeah. You can always make money. There's a million ways to make money, more than a million.
Yeah. All you need is somebody else's time, energy, and you have currency.
Kiri's about to walk. That's awesome.
Yeah.
By walk, I mean walk to freedom, which is the freedom of what she wants to be doing. She had that decision to make. She had to leave a job I don't think she hated, but she wants something different for her future.
I mean, like we've been talking a lot about, you can just change and you can just, shift vectors. The word just, it's this short little word that expands, it encompasses the entire universe. And so I don't want to make too small a deal of people who have to, just change everything about the way that they, do their lives. It's a big deal for sure. And, but it's possible. And people, if you look around, you'll see people are doing it all the time. And that should give a person hope that it's possible for them too, whatever they want,
The saying in the holler is every time we say the word just in a sentence, it usually means it's going to be 10 times the work and 4 times as expensive as we thought it would be. Right. But when we've committed to doing it, we commit and we go through that.
Yep.
But it's kind of a joke around here where Tactical will be like, you just said the word just again, Nicole.
Yep. I'm just going to do this. It's going to take everything I've got for the next 6 months, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So the freedom to actually grow yourself and your business is everything to me. And it shows, Kiri, in your actions. Yeah, A-Ray Pierre, you're making some choices difficult. So A-Ray Pierre is going through a time in his life where he gets to choose a new path, which sometimes when you get to choose a new path and there are so many opportunities, it can be hard to choose where to go. But to your earlier point, go.
It's way easier to turn while you're in motion than it is while you're standing still.
Yep. Ed Hubbell, is Iridium part of your business?
I'd say so, unless you're talking about the satellites. Those are not mine. But Iridium Solutions and the Iridium Group, that is mine. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, it sounds like some of the questions have petered out. You got any on yours, Ed? Or should we wrap?
I'm good. This is nice. We didn't nearly talk about nuclear war at all this entire podcast. Thank you for that.
I mean, I have no idea how that happened, but I didn't say, like last time you came on, there'd been that big chemical spill.
Yeah, sure. Right.
Everybody was all spun up about that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I really enjoy having these chats. And the thing about, especially when John gets on a live stream with anybody, is it's not always the predictable conversation that's going to be had. Like, we could talk about just about anything. And so it's nice to not just do the thing that everybody expects, right?
That's the fun of talking to John, actually.
Yep.
He's going to ask me some hard question I hadn't thought of today yet. It's usually because he's asking himself the same question, right, John?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah. Super helpful. Okay, let's go once around the horn and we'll wrap up. Ed, why don't you start?
Excellent. What do I need to do?
Tell us how to buy your products and anything else you want to share with this audience.
As my friend James Yeager used to say, if people can't find me, I don't want their business. And I used to like that. I like the idea of people have to do a little bit of digging to figure stuff out. People tend to expect to have things like given to them. Just put it like, hey, why didn't you post your link to the thing you were talking about? Let me Google it for you. So I love that. I'm gonna go ahead and help all those people who didn't want to just hear that and say iridiumsolutions.ca, iridiumtraining.ca, iridiumindustrial.ca. Those are all the different arms of the business that I have. I teach firearms in Canada. I teach trauma medicine. I teach tactical radiation protection. I do visual inspections. I'm a welding inspector and pressure vessel inspector. I work in radiation protection, and I sell trauma medicine supplies and gas masks and night vision and thermal scopes and preparedness stuff. And I am a huge fan of SOE tactical gear. And if you need to buy something that they sell and you ask me, what about this other competing item? I'm not going to tell you anything about the other competing item.
Smart.
Oh, and let me do a little shout out to this. Amanda sent me this.
Oh, sweet.
Rock of the Woods from Amanda's Mercantile. This smells amazing. So if you haven't tried that yet, get on the SOE website, which John is definitely not paying me to tell you this. I just honestly, I love this product. I love this sort of community in this family, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Awesome. John, what do you got today?
Guys, I do a live every night at 9:00 on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. That conversation will run for an hour to 2 hours, depending on, whatever's going on. It can be light politics, current events, homesteading, prepping, business, whatever you want to talk about. I am very muted when I sit down. I'm a lot more alive when I stand up. So those videos are usually walking around the shop. So I'm easy to find. It's SOE tactical gear everywhere. And we can discuss whatever you guys want to talk about.
And I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast. If you don't have enough to listen to already, check it out at livingfreeintennessee.com. And I also roast awesome coffee, and we've talked about it on and off. And we have a new product coming out that's a big surprise, and there will be signs that you could probably figure out what that product is. And if you're interested in being involved with the launch and maybe getting the initial coupon code, which will be the only time a coupon code happens in the history of my company, I recommend you head over to hollerroast.com and shoot me an email. Just guess what it might be that's coming out, and we'll get you on that list for the launch. It's going to be here soon. hollerroast.com roasts everything to order, and we love sharing a premium coffee experience with folks. We will see you guys next week. It'll be at a different time next week, 9:30 with Jack Spirko. See you soon.
Awesome.